Our next session is Onramp to big data. And essentially, it's how do we get started with big data? So some lay of the land. We'll talk about what big data is, where it is evolving, what are the trends. To conduct that special session, we invited Gartner's Vice President of Research, Merv, Adrian.
Yeah, I can't hold a job. What can I say? Well, you just had a lightning round. I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. They gave me all of 15 minutes to do this, so we're going to roll rather quickly through this. And I'll start with this. This is a fundamental positioning statement that Gartner has been making about the marketplace for several years. It shouldn't be surprising to any of you. These are the forces we talk about all the time, and the point is we live at the nexus of these forces. You listen to the anecdotes and the product pitches you're going to hear for the next day or two. Everybody's talking about the impact of cloud, the impact of mobile, and everything flows through data, right? None of this is any surprise to anybody, so I don't really have to spend a lot of time, I think, dwelling on it. So let's keep going. Let's, at least for a moment, agree on a definition, because if you ask 10 people to define big data, you will get 20 definitions. So this is the one that Gartner has been working on now for over a decade. It was originally coined by a colleague of mine, Doug Laney. At least the first half of it was, about a decade ago, with the famous 3 V's: volume, velocity, and variety, right? But what matters about this definition is not that first part. It's the second part that you see here. These things, and we heard Steve Shine talk about this earlier today, demand us to innovate, to do things in a completely different way, to take advantage of these opportunities, to really leverage them, to monetize them, to transform our businesses in a way that they make possible. We must do things differently. If you really push it as far as you can, then, well, we heard Mike Roden talking about that this morning in the main 10 keynote about moving from deterministic to probabilistic programming. That's pretty abstract for most of us. But really, what tools let us do is extend our capabilities. And when we extend our capabilities, we get to do more things, and we get to do them differently, and we get to get more value out of the things we're doing. I loved the example that Mike used this morning. He said, you know, we automated accounting. I mean, this is really where all of this computing stuff started, right? We got the bookkeeping done. We cut checks for people. That was the first app. That was the first operational app. The second app was analytics. We needed a report about which checks we cut, right? It started there. But where does it go from there? It goes from automating existing processes to making entirely new ones possible. And Mike's point, which I loved again, was we automated bookkeeping, and yet financial services has grown. We didn't get rid of the bookkeepers and reduce employment. We created new products. We created entirely new ways to think about what we do with money, how we monetize things. If you're looking for seats, there's plenty of them over here, by the way. So the key here is innovation, and the pace of that innovation is extraordinary right now, and its effects are being felt. You're going to hear a lot of anecdotal discussions here. Lots of people have examples of their customers and the innovative things they're doing, but I thought, being from a research firm, I'd push it up a click and just give you a little bit larger aggregate view of this, because this is how we track how rapidly things happen. There's a thing that happens here in Silicon Valley. I live here too. It is a reality distortion field. I think we all know that. You know, once we get it drawn on the whiteboard, we think it's done, right? You'll hear a lot of that. Once we've got a few customers, it's a trend. If we've got a dozen customers, it's transforming the world as we know it. So take a step back and let's talk about what's actually happening. Most of what you're going to hear is about software. It's kind of interesting to look at the other side because people really spend money on hardware. It's capital expenditure, and even though we're moving to the cloud, it turns out people are still buying hardware. Take a look at this chart, and it tells you what we're looking at in terms of spending on hardware that people are able to and willing to identify as being specifically for big data projects. That, by the way, turns out not to be so easy. Lots of folks have attempted to size what they call the big data market. At Gartner, we don't think big data is a market. We think in 2 or 3 years, we'll just be talking about data again, right? And it won't be big anymore because big won't even mean anything anymore. It'll be a lot bigger than big. It'll be colossal data. It'll be humongous data. But it'll just be data. And fundamentally, what we're talking about is that the systems that run this will either be in your shop or they'll be in the cloud. That transformation will be underway for a long time. But what you will live with between now and then is a hybrid world. Some of your systems are already in the cloud. Most of the clients we talk to have already put some things there. Some of your systems are still on premise. The mix will change, but that fact will stay true for a long time. And one of the fundamental market dynamics we're going to look at for the next couple of years is likely to be whether cloud-only platform providers can help customers who stay on premise for at least part of their architecture make that transition, or whether it turns out that all those old traditional big iron companies who are themselves now learning to move to the cloud wind up driving that. My personal opinion is the cloud companies better get with it and understand that many of their prospects and all the key mainstream customers they would like to get a bigger footprint with would like to understand how they're going to live with a foot in both worlds. And until they begin to challenge their own organizations and build out their own organizations to deal with that dichotomy, they will remain inside the Silicon Valley reality distortion field. So, now, another key point here. Favorite quote of William Gibson: "The future is here, it's just unevenly distributed." You're going to hear a lot about the future here, and that quote applies to the marketplace for big data today. This is a heat map of adoption. It's an eye chart. I realize you can't read it from the back of the room. I'm going to pick one or two of the vertical columns that represent industries here for you. And there is no laser on this, so I won't be able to do it that way. But I have a wireless mic. I can walk over here. At this end of the chart, this very hot, red and orange are very hot. Okay? What we're looking at here is communications, media, and services. Those guys are all over big data. Anybody surprised? I suspect not. Banking and securities. Well, they are the classic early adopters of new technology because things move very fast in the world of finance. Competitive advantage can be momentary. My favorite story about that is from the days when, yes, Piyush, I did work on Wall Street. I worked at the Federal Reserve Bank for a while as a statistician, and I remember a 6-month period where there was one of the big money center banks that gained advantage over the others in taking their foreign exchange positions early in the morning. It was a very high-tech solution. We cut a tape every night, and all of the money center banks would come to the Fed and pick up that tape, take it back to their data centers and load it, run their algorithms, and take their positions. One bank led for 6 months in the marketplace, a slightly higher rate of return than everybody else. And you know how they did it? They got a bicycle messenger. New technology. They got that tape to their data center faster than the guys who were taking taxis. So anybody who lives in an urban area can appreciate the irony here. At the other end of the spectrum, you see that there's a couple of places where things are really cold. And actually, one of them is rather surprising and one is not. I'm going to come down here for a minute and point. So the second one from the end here is utilities. And I can't turn on the radio without hearing about wireless thermostats anymore. I don't know about you. First it was Nest. Now I'm hearing Honeywell ads every day. Everybody sees that the energy business is really taking great leaps forward. Not so much. This is real spending, okay? So we're hearing the anecdotes. At Gartner, we spend a lot of time thinking about whether those anecdotes are turning into reality. Here's another one, wholesale trade. That's B2B. You would think that was one of the more easy things to invest in. Maybe they just don't think it's big data. Maybe they get that big data is unevenly distributed too. They're certainly doing plenty of things to enable better B2B trade today, but they don't seem to be spending money on big data as we define it or as they define it. So always keep in mind, you're going to hear lots of individual stories of success. Today, that's what we're looking at. Lots of individual stories of success. And one of the reasons is that this is complex. Here's a stack. We love to talk stacks in the software business. This is a stack of the things you need to do if you want to build out something with Hadoop today. So go ahead, pick your pieces, I'll wait. It's fun. This is the result of a late night watching ESPN and getting incredibly frustrated about that stuff that keeps scrolling across the bottom of the screen that I already know and I don't want to see it again, and there's no way to turn it off. I can turn it off. The point here is everything in each one of these layers of the stack is being innovated on at an extraordinary pace. And even that isn't fast enough. Just this week, Hortonworks picked up a little company called XA Secure to add some more security to the Hadoop stack. This is one of the biggest holes that we have in this part of the market right now, is whether this stuff is governable, policy compliant, secure. We could talk about that for a long time, but I only have 15 minutes. The point is, nobody is more vocal about the power of the open source community, its incredible creative energy and its fertility and its rapidity of development than Hortonworks. These are the guys who are waving the flag, championing, I can say this, the open source movement. And it's been an incredible source of innovation. Even that wasn't fast enough for them. They had to go out and acquire a company to get there faster. We're going to have this mixed model here as well. Just as we have on-premises and cloud, we are going to have commercial and open source software for a long time to come too. Because there's a slightly more direct connection between the marketplace and product requirements and delivery of product in the commercial marketplace than there is in the open source marketplace. Go to a conference like this filled with people who are working on one of the Hadoop projects and watch the chairman of the project get up on stage and say, these are the features that we need in the next release. So can I have some volunteers, please? That can be a very useful way to develop, but it doesn't always get to the deadlines you want. By contrast, go to a meeting inside a commercial software organization, watch the head of product management get up to the front of the room and say, these are the 5 features I need. You, and you. I need those on my desk next Friday. It happens a little differently. So we need to be able to reconcile these two models. We are struggling to do that economically, but we seem to be groping our way forward at a reasonably good pace. And so at Gartner, we believe that the big data movement is certainly healthy and moving very nicely. And it's got some holes to fill. There's a few here. I mentioned security right at the top because fundamentally, when you move from early adopter, alpha adoption to mainstream, everyday Fortune 500 apps, you're going to have to make this thing secure. You're going to have to make it governable. You're going to have some tools for conventional data warehousing because, look, data lakes are great. Search-based computation is great. We love it. But schema on read, if you translate it into real practice, is schema on read, write on second read. Okay? Once you find something useful, you put a sign there so you can find it the next time. You build a road so you can get there more quickly and transport it back more rapidly. We do a little bit of improvement. So we like to talk about data lakes these days. Realistically, what we need is data reservoirs. They're managed. Somebody's managing quality. Somebody's looking at the flows in and the flows out for us. God makes lakes. People make reservoirs. That's where we're going.